Law of cosines is a very intimidating formula, but it is not very bad. There are 3 versions of it, but that is simply, it depends on what you have to solve for. Obviously, you may notice that here is side A. How many other times does side A appear in that formula, the very top one? Never, but angle A is at the end. Here is side B, but it's the only time side B appears, except angle B is there. So you might figure out which one to use based on what you want to solve for. It's probably going to be the easiest way to figure that out. And remember, the way they get those letters is if this is angle A, that's side A, B, and C, and C. And so what's going to happen is basically you're still going to get 3 bits of information, but I'm not going to give you a pair. Because if I give you a pair, you should go to law of sines. So this is law of cosines. Well, what happens if I give you 3 bits of information and I don't give you a pair? So we will figure out which one of those we're going to want to use. So in this one here, we know that angle B is 41 degrees. Side C, remember, you have to put that in the right spot, would be right there. And side A is 13. That is how I could give you 3 bits of information without giving you a pair. Now, what some people want to do right away is they want to tell me that that bottom one is 5 because they remember 5, 12, 13 as a Pythagorean triple. But that's making the assumption that this is a right triangle, which we don't know. It could be, but we don't know that. And so basically, obviously side B is over here, and angle C and angle A are the things I have to figure out. And so what I would do is find the one that has B kind of sitting all by itself as best we can, and that's the one that starts with B squared. So it equals A squared plus C squared. That should look very familiar. That basically right there is Pythagorean theorem. Slightly different form than you're used to. And what this is the fix. Because that takes care of it if it's not a right triangle. But you notice that I had A and C here, and I also have A and C there. And it's always a -2 here, and it's always cosine of whatever the angle is there. The only reason I capitalize cosine here is so that you don't look at 2 C's right in a row. Otherwise, that could get confusing. So all you have to do now is fill in the information. So B, I don't know. Well, A is 13. And once you're done, maybe just write this down, and then I'll show you that the calculators will actually do most of this for you. And those of you that are currently in geometry, obviously, you just had this, so this is kind of nice for you. Cosine of 41. But of course, before you start anything with that calculator, we are doing some trigonometry here. You better make sure you are in the correct mode. What mode would I like to be in for this one? Degrees, because the angles are given in degrees. And the best part about all of this is you can pretty much, if you have the TI-83 or even the 32X or whatever it's called, you can pretty much type this straight in and it'll do it for you. But remember, that's what B squared is going to equal. So let's go ahead. We'll just go ahead and see what we get. So the first thing, of course, check your mode if it decides to work. There it is. Am I in the correct mode? Most definitely not. And the computer's a little slow today, so if it starts having problems, I'll just have to slow down. So you'll probably get done before I do. So 13 squared plus 12 squared minus 2. Nice thing is if you put a parenthesis like that, it knows it's multiplied. You don't even have to put a times in there. 13, close it off. Open another one for 12. Close it off, and then cosine of 41. I would get in the habit of closing off any angles that you have in case you do one that's a little more complicated. Now, if I hit enter right now, will this be the answer for side B?
No.
Why not? Oh, it's B squared. Oh, okay. So is this answer probably going to be a little bigger than we're anticipating? Yeah, it's going to be pretty big. So yeah, right about 77.53, I would say. So obviously we know that, because if you look at that as a side makes no sense with the other numbers, right? Doesn't even fit in there. But that's because that's B squared. So what we have to do is take the square root. And if you have forgotten, these calculators are actually pretty neat with this, that you can hit second square root. And then I can somehow get that whole decimal down here. And how do you do that again? It's, yeah, answer, or ANS, which is second. And the negative, there it is. And again, you might want to get in the habit of closing off parentheses. A lot of times it doesn't matter, but let's try and avoid the one time maybe it does. And we've been rounded, what, to tenths pretty much. So we can stick with that if you would like. I don't have a problem with that. So what is that I just solved for? That's side B. Okay, is 8.8. Okay, so I'll erase that. Now maybe do the new answers in a slightly different color. Yes? Okay, I will have to take a look at your calculator because I know yours has to be typed in backwards. Okay, here's probably what you did. Here's the most common mistake if you do it separately. This you got what? 169, 144 minus, what'd you get for that amount? Or did you do the whole thing? You got for the whole thing or just that? Okay. Here's the most common mistake. Yes, we add these two together. You can add those two together, and when you get, what'd you get when you added just those two together? 313. You cannot subtract 312 from that because 312 is attached to cosine of 41 by multiplication, and order of operations says to do multiplication first. Okay? And so realize if you're going to do that, just type this straight in if you can. Okay? And that'll make it easier. Yeah, but that's a very most common. You can't just subtract these two because there's multiplication right there. Okay? So it said to solve the triangle though in the directions. So if you really felt like it, you could go and do, law of cosines again. But what do we have now? We have a pair. Let's face it, isn't law of sines a little bit easier to work with? But wait a minute. Well, we have all three sides though. So do I have to worry about all those cases of weird things in this one? I don't really have to worry about it in this one. I'll show you in the next one. We might want to be careful. But in this one, we're probably fine. So let's go ahead. It's sine of 41 over 8.8 equals. Now, if I were you, just to be careful, why don't we go for the smallest angle remaining? Whenever I get to law of sines, do the smallest. And so if I'm going to do the smallest, is it going to be angle A or angle C?
C.
Yes, C is going to be smaller because it has 12 across from it instead of 13. So sine of C over 12. So of course, we're going to take 12 times that. That equals 8.8 sine of C. Well, my variable is not alone, is it? Well, it's got a sine on it and it's got an 8.8. I think we all agree 8.8 is the easier one to get rid of. I know some of you have made many shortcuts on this particular method here, and that's fine, as long as you're sure of what you're doing. But now I got to get rid of sine, which means take arc sine of both sides. So in other words, I have to take arc sine of 12 sine of 41 all over 8.8. That'll equal C. Okay. If you are not comfortable with your calculator, you can just type in the fraction part and then take arc sine of your answer if you don't feel comfortable with your calculator. That is completely up to you. The question here is, are we going to run into ones where we have two solutions? That should not happen because of the setup. But what can happen is if you go for the wrong angle first, it could give you the first answer when you need the second one. But it's just the second one that's the answer now. It's not both of them being the answer. Okay, great question. And I'm going to address that in the next example of how to solve that. If you just go for the smallest angle remaining, you should be fine. Okay. And so has anybody figured out angle C yet? Has anybody come up with that? 63.5, okay. Degrees, yeah. So 63.5 degrees right there. And obviously for angle A, if you really wanted to, you could go to law of cosines. Big waste of time. You could go to law of sines, still kind of a waste of time, and it won't be 100%, well, it'll be pretty accurate, but let's just make it be 180 degrees. Let's just do that. So we know it's obviously 0.5, right? And what do we get there, 75.5 degrees. Yes, question.
I found A first and I get 75.7.
Okay, that's fine. The question here is, what if they found A on this one first as 75.7? Then you're going to be close. But I'm going to caution you. There are going to be some problems where you'll get the wrong angle A. Because the correct answer is the second occurrence of that sine value, not the first one. Which is why I tell you to go for the smallest angle remaining. Because then you know it'll give you the obtuse if it's supposed to. just by being 180 degrees, it'll take care of that for you. You don't have to worry about those two cases with law of sines. Okay? I know, no, that's good that you guys are concerned about that, though. At least you're looking at it saying, wait a minute, we've got a problem with sines, so that's good. How is this problem different? Yeah, I gave you, but did I still give you 3 bits of information? Yes, I did. Okay? And this might take a while, so I think I am going to save this quick.